Welcome to Creative Pages with Catherine. I'm Catherine. Today I want to show you not only our brand new Welcome Home collection, I also want to show you how to do a project recipe using not only the Welcome Home collection, but also our Spring Cottage collection. So let's begin. First, I want to show you our designer papers that are available in our Welcome Home collection. This is our paper packs, and all of our pages are double-sided. And I just want to give you a quick look at both sides of the pages that come in this collection. There's a lot of blues, there's some greens, there's some browns and neutral tones. It's very versatile and can be used with many different types of pictures, indoors or outdoors. So there are the 6 pages in our designer paper pack. And next I'm going to show you our tone-on-tone papers from our Welcome Home collection. And again, some beautiful neutral patterns and colors. We have our browns, we have our greens, there's some ivy. If you do a lot of gardening, they would go great with gardening pictures, but like I said, indoor pictures can work as well. Some geometrics, and that is the last of our tone-on-tone pages. The collection also has stickers, so we have 3 sticker sheets. 2 of them are more border type shapes, and the third has some of our just welcome home sayings made with love. Love makes a house a home, some ivy and other items you can add to your pages. There's a set of laser cut borders that go with the pages beautifully. And I will put a white sheet under here so you can see them better. Here we go. And if you didn't know, all of our borders, our laser cut borders, also come double-sided. So there's 2 colors for each one that you can choose from, depending on what your page has that you would like to put it on. Some really cute colored rocks. A couple of more geometric shapes. Beautiful lattice. And other shapes that you can use as a border on any of your pages that you create. The collection also includes mats, our variety mat pack. And we always have our larger sized 4x6 and then our 4.5 by 6.5 sized mats, and some of them are ones you can cut in half and use for a smaller journal box. Others have little sayings on them about the best things in life or other things. I'm going to just flip through these quickly so you can get a feel for what's available in the mat pack. And then a lot of times you can have the saying will be on both sides of the card, just in a different orientation. So home and home. Here's another one that says home sweet home. Different orientation depending on which way you want to put it. This one is when we have each other, we have everything. There's a little love. Let's stay home, which a lot of us are doing right now. And these are large ones. And you can always use the matte packs for matting for your pictures as well. You can, like I said, you can cut these and use them as journal boxes. You can use them as outlines for your pictures. You can use them in your card making. They're very versatile. So that's the matte pack. The Welcome Home collection also comes with a set of embellishments, and I've laid out our smaller embellishments here. Some of them are foiled, some of them are our regular die cut embellishments, and there's pots, there's foliage, there's some words, handmade in the yard, pride and joy, that you can see here. And we also have 100 of these enameled stickers that you can add to your pages as well. And there also are some larger embellishments here as well. I'm going to move these other ones over a little bit so I can show you. That these can go on your pages as well. This one actually looks nice layered with something else, the lattice. I'll put that there so you can get a better look at it. And I wanted to also let you all know that I am offering a special where if you buy the decorative Welcome Home bundle from me, the Welcome Home decorative bundle, I will send you the handout, the email of our project recipe that we're going to be putting together today. So you would get the cutting instructions in your email, and I will send it to the email that you use for making the purchase of the bundle, which I can see in my website. So if you follow the link, I will see it and would appreciate your making the purchase with me. And I will run the special until the end of February 28th of 2022. For this project recipe, you will need a sheet of hot fudge cardstock. You will also need 2 sheets of our tone-on-tone paper from our Welcome Home collection and 2 sheets of our designer paper. So I picked these 2 designer pages and these 2 of our tone-on-tone. And I have our hot fudge cardstock. I only pulled 1 sheet of hot fudge cardstock because we're going to use about half the page. So I'm going to use half of it for the Welcome Home pages, and I'll use the other half for the Spring Cottage pages that I'll be putting together. First things first, you need to get out your border maker system. And we're going to be using the Honeycomb Border Maker cartridge. And we need to punch 2 sets of honeycomb borders from our tone-on-tone papers. So if you haven't used our border maker before, there's a little tray underneath that you pull up, and then there's notches on our holder, the paper holder, that match up with the notch on our punch. So you want to line up your notches, put your paper in, and you just go up the page. There's one, and I'll set that up here. And now we're going to do a second one. And there we go. Beautiful. You can see our honeycomb cutouts on both sides from our punch. And I'll set that up. We also need to do it from our second tone-on-tone sheet. And a lot of times it's good to look at both sides of your paper. We can see that this page has stripes running down it. And I'm going to see how this works out for me. I am not sure if I really want them running up and down or not, but we're going to go with it. There, we got our first one, and now we need to do one more of these. I'm going to remove some of my confetti here, just so that way I don't get it caught on anything. And these little hexagons can easily be saved to be used in a card or other items that you're making. If you want to throw confetti into a birthday card for somebody, set it aside, save it, use it. Last one. And there you go. We now have our 4 honeycombed borders that we've punched out. Set aside our border maker system and continue to follow the cutting guide. Once I get my mat cleaned off a little bit here. Okay. So we now need to cut a 3 1/4 by 12 inch piece. So I'm going to go to 3 1/4 on my trimmer here. And just cut that straight down. And we also need 2 4 by 6 pieces. So I am going to go to 4 inches. And cut that first, and then cut it in half at 6 inches. And finally, we need 2 1/2 by 2 1/2, and it says using the reverse side of the page, but when we're cutting it doesn't really matter. That'll be for when we're placing it later. So let's see first if this is 2 1/2, which is what it should be. Just a little bit over. It's about 1/8 of an inch over. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it down just a little bit. So that way we're getting the correct size. And then I'm going to cut my 2 1/2 inch squares. And you don't have to use the top, you can also use the bottom, so that way your cutting mat doesn't all wear at the top. Or you can even use the middle if you wish. Go ahead and line this up, one up in the middle, just to show how it's easy enough to cut from anywhere. So you also have an extra little piece that is an extra piece, so set that aside or add it to your scraps to use later. On our second sheet of tone-on-tone paper, we need to cut 3 6x4. So we'll go ahead and cut it 6 inches first. And then we'll cut it 4 inches twice. And then we also need a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch square as well. And I'm going to go ahead and cut 2.5 inches off this way first. Here's 2.5. And then I'm going to set the larger piece aside and cut 2.5 as well this direction. And there you have your square. So we'll set these aside, and next we need to get our hot fudge cardstock. And we need actually 2 3/4 inch squares. We need 8 of them. So we'll go ahead and do 2 3/4. And then I'll make 3 cuts, 2 3/4, and I'll just go ahead and use the bottom here. And our grid lines on our trimmer make it so easy to line up our cuts. You almost don't even have to use the ruler. Okay, so now I'm going to cut 2 3/4 again, going down the cardstock. And we'll do another series of 4 squares at 2 3/4 again. Oops, I didn't get all the way through on that one. That's okay. We'll just go back and fix it. And last one. So that is it for our cutting. It's now time to put our pages together. We're actually not done with our trimmer. We need to cut our honeycomb borders real quick into 2.5 inch sections, and it says to only cut 3 of them. And so I'm going to line mine up so you can see which one. I'm going to match up my paper because it's the one that matches your paper that you cut 3 of your 6x4 squares on. So for me, it's the lighter one. I'm going to set one of my borders aside, the one that matches the lighter toned tone paper, and my other 3 I will cut into 2.5 inch sections. And we can do this one at a time just to make it easier. Here's 2.5 here, lining it up with our other grid lines on our trimmer to keep it straight, going all the way across. Here's another 2.5, lining it up all the way across. 2.5 again. Okay, I'm going to set aside my last piece because it's not quite 2.5. So I'm going to take my other one and I'm going to try to line both of them up at the same time, just so that way I don't wind up with a super long video here. So here's 1 and 2 at 2.5. So I'm going to the second line in from the 2-inch line, making sure I'm lined up. That's the second line in. So our 2-inch line is always darker. And there we go. So the 2-inch line is dark again, and then I'm just going 2 grid lines past it to get to the 2.5. Lining it up on our darker lines, going across to make sure I get this straight. This one is not currently straight. Here we go. One and 2. Oops. And a fourth, 2.5 here. Oops. And 2.5. There we go. So I'm going to set aside these end pieces again with my other one, and so now I have a stack of 2.5 inch honeycomb border pieces. Next, we want to take our squares we cut from our tone-on-tone paper here. I'm going to get my parchment lined board so that way my repositionable tape doesn't stick to anything but what I'm trying to stick it to. And we are going to adhere our pieces to our squares. Our pieces are honeycomb pieces. So now I see why it said reverse. So let's reverse these first. Since the main side of our page that I'm going to use is this one, this would be the reverse, this ivy side. And it's a little bit harder to tell with this one. My ivy side is here, so I'm going to flip it so the ivy side is up. And that will be the side that gets my repositionable tape. And this is going to go on the left side. Well, somehow my cut is off a little bit, but that's okay. It's paper, and I can fix that with my scissors pretty quickly. So there's one. And we need to go ahead and do that with the second box as well. So we're just putting them going vertically up the box. On the two outer sides, and I'm going to grab my scissors and use my precision tip scissors because they don't let anything stick to them. I don't know if you've tried these scissors, but they have a special coating on them, and so the sticky tapes and what have you don't stick to them. They're wonderful. All right, so I have two done, and then we need to adhere our middle piece, which is from our other page here, our lighter one. So I'm actually going to flip mine so that way I get a more definitive contrast, since my green on green is kind of dark. When you're picking pages, you might want to pick one that has a little bit more of a color difference than this one. Is very similar on both sides. But it's a good thing I like green. I have a lot of pictures with forests and grasses and flowers, so I don't mind that at all. With our other two, we are going to be doing 4 more and 2 more of these. So we're going to do the 4 on the outside again and 2 more in the center. Oops. And now I have it sticking to me. If I had the coating that the scissors had, it wouldn't be sticking to me, would it? It would not. Okay, so there's that one. And here's our second one. And again, I'm just doing these up and down, but when we place them on the page, some of them will be in a different direction. And I got this one just a little bit crooked, so I'm gonna fix it, which is the beauty of using the repositionable tape, is that you can move your pieces and straighten them out if you don't like how they went down the first time. There we go. And now I'm going to put my lighter pieces in the center again. Here we go, there's one. And 2. Oops, that one's going crooked also. Straighten that out a little bit here. There we go. All right, so now we're going to set those aside a moment. I'm going to get my first piece of designer paper. We're going to do the right side of our 2-page spread. And for this one, we will need four of our pieces of cardstock that we cut earlier. That are going to go across the bottom. We're going to need our full honeycomb border that's going to go across here, and I think I'm going to use the lighter side of this one. And we also are going to place 2 of our pieces that we cut from our lighter tone on tone, the 6x4 inch pieces. Also, we need our strip, our 3 1/4 inch by 12 inch strip we cut from our second tone on tone. That's actually going to go underneath here. And then our cardstock pieces are going to go across on top of it. And this one. So our last little square we cut out of our 2 1/2 by 2 1/2 piece. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and start putting things down. I'm going to use my permanent tape runner for the bigger pieces, but I'll use my repositionable when I get to the honeycomb because it makes life simpler and easier. I'm going to put this just a little bit up from the bottom, just so that way we can see the design coming out from the bottom of the page. And these are going to go across the 4 across here with a little bit of the designer paper showing from underneath. So if you want to look at your placement first, that's usually a good idea. Get my tape runner here, and a little bit of tape goes a long way with our regular tape runner. I'm gonna try to center this. There we go. Grab my parchment sheet again here to do the border. And that just goes on top of our designer paper here at the bottom of our page. And then our 2 pictures get placed offset from each other here. So then you have space for embellishments, stickers, journal boxes, whatever else you would like to put on your page. So these are our photo mats. This guy goes down here. Perfect place for one of our embellishments. But first we're going to go ahead and do the other page, since this is a 2-page spread. And then I'll add a little bit of embellishment to it. So I have the blue floral page, and I'm going to be putting, let's see here, we have these 2. Let's see, I think I definitely like the more darker tone against the backdrop of the florals here. Okay, and then we're going to take our other 4 cardstock squares going down our page with our honeycombs on top of the cardstocks. Oops. There we go. And here we go. Well, this is definitely going to have to move up because I'm off my page. And we have a 3rd photo that's going to go on this side, so we'll get our photo mat here. And actually I'm going to use the same side I used on the honeycomb border to kind of reiterate the same theme here. And let's start sticking these down. Actually, I think I'm going to place my honeycomb onto my cardstock first. Get that centered. And then go ahead and place my cardstock on my paper here. Scoot those over, put this one down. Get my paper straight on my 13 by 13 cutting mat so that way it doesn't look crooked, hopefully, to you all. We really just want to have a little bit of the designer paper showing in between the squares. Continuing down, and here's our last one. There we go. Now let's get our photo mats attached. Let's see, we do want these upper ones offset just a little bit, but our bottom one a little bit more squared off and centered with the page. There we go. So here's our 2-page spread completed, except for the project recipe. They have it going this way, but as you can see, you can pretty much do with it as you wish. Turn it whichever direction looks best for your pages. With your embellishments, you can turn this one and actually have all your squares going across the bottom if you want. Angle it so that where they're going across the top. But on the actual project recipe, we're looking like this. And if I were to add, maybe I would want an embellishment on here. So let's look real quick and find an embellishment. Oh. Wonder if, no, let's see. Home one doesn't quite fit. I almost like the birds kind of sitting up there, and then if I put the birdhouse down here, it kind of ties it in together. I think I'm going to do that. And I'm going to get one of my foam squares to put underneath the bird feeder. Actually, I'm going to put a couple of small foam squares underneath. Just to give it a little extra dimension to the page. There we go. So our bird feeder is here. Placing that down, and I'm just gonna stick this one on. And I almost think that one of the little journal boxes from our matte pack that we saw earlier would look really nice up here with our birds, or check real quick. This might actually be too big to fit the large one. But I think this one here, yeah, that looks a little bit too big. This one here actually looks really nice. I'm gonna grab my trimmer. I'm gonna cut this in half, and honestly, one of the best features of our 12-inch trimmer is our cutting guide. Lines that are just hidden in the housing here is where they stay. But that way I know I'm cutting exactly in the middle of the mat. So I'm going to add this up here because I think it looks nice with my paper that I chose for the bottom, and it goes with what my mats are on my opposite side of my page here. And it helps to dress up the page a little bit more as well. So there we go. I don't think this other side needs really much because it has so much going on with the honeycomb over here. I mean, if you wanted to add a little bit of, if we have a sticker with a bird, those could definitely be added, but it's not really necessary. And you can even turn one of these mats into a journal box as well. So next we're gonna do this with our Spring Cottage pages so you can see that each collection can work with any of these project recipes. So back out comes the trimmer after we do our cutting, or our border maker. So I have the other half of the hot fudge cardstock that we had from earlier. I have 2 sheets of Spring Cottage designer paper for our base of our layout. And I have our 2 tone-on-tone pages here. I went with a simple brown and a simple green. Instead of using the Honeycomb border maker cartridge, we're going to use the mirrored triangle border maker cartridge. And what you want when you're substituting one that pulls away, you want to substitute it with another one that comes away from the paper. Some of our border maker cartridges basically will stay with the paper. It punches the design into the paper. And then the other ones, like the honeycomb that we just saw, actually the paper comes away. And if you want more information on some of that, I do have another video that I did talking about the bridge border. So feel free to look up that series and see the fun things I put together with it. Okay, so we're going to punch 2 of our mirrored triangles borders here using the same technique we did in the first project recipe. Uh-oh, I've gotten caught a little bit, which is not what you want to have happen. Let's see if I can get this last punch done. Line it up as best I can here, and I'm just going to go for it. I think, there we go. All right. Well, it's just as well we're cutting 2.5-inch pieces out of some of them. I don't know what got caught, but something did, and it's okay. I can work with it. I'm going to take my scissors and just trim off this extra little piece so that way I can get a straight cut from my next punching. Okay, let's try this again. And there we go. There's our second one. And now I'm going to clean up just a little bit before I punch my next set, because the mirrored triangle gives off a lot of confetti also here. And you can definitely use your scraps for other things again as well. Okay, so this is my second tone on tone sheet, and we need to cut it twice as well. There we go. Okay. Let me get this cleaned up a little bit, and then we'll get into our cutting. Set aside the border maker, and now, since I know I messed up on this one mirrored triangle, I am going to set aside one of my green ones to use as the full one for this project recipe. I'm just going to set my piece that broke off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and cut our 2.5 inch sections first. So I'm going to go from the end that didn't get ripped up. So here's 2.5, and this is my other one. And then the third one. So we're just going to go ahead and go for it and line up all three at once. Here's one. Here's two. And three. Let's see if I get that at 2.5 and not at 2 3/4. Okay, so there's one. Two is right there. Here's 2.5. Move this up just a little. 2.5. Moved on me just a little bit. Double check and make sure that they're straight. There we go. So I'm putting my brown ones in a pile and my green one in a pile. 2.5. And here we go. Okay, so this one is not quite long enough, so I'm going to pull my other end and measure it real quick. That one's not quite long enough either. So we might have to piece together our last mirrored triangle here. And I think I'm just going to take my scissors again. Cut this little end off of here. And I'm going to cut this end off that got caught in the piece here. Let's see. And then I'm going to try overlapping these two to get my 2.5 inches. So I'm going to turn it to get my long end out here, just the 2.5. And let's see here. That looks about right. My other two, oops, that moved. So let me see if I can get that straightened out again. Work with me here. There we go. So it doesn't matter that this piece is coming off because we're just cutting the other piece. There we go. So that is now scrap. These two are going to stick together to make my 2.5 inches. I'm going to set that at the bottom of my pile. So I know I need to take care of that when we get to taping. And then these two are our extra pieces. Okay, so we now need to cut our other pieces of our tone-on-tone paper. So we're going to do our 3 1/4 by 12 inch. And it is there we go. Got myself caught again a little bit. And then the 4 inches by 6 inches. So we need to cut the 4 inch first. And then cut it in half at 6 inches. For our 2 mats. And now these were the 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch squares. So 2.5. And again, it's just a little bit over, but I'm going to leave it this time. And we'll see if we really needed to cut that little bit off the last time. So here's 2.5. A lot of 2.5 measurements in this one. And there we go. And then we have our extra scrap to set aside. And now with our second page, which for me is my green page here, we're going to do 6 inches, and then we're going to do our 4 inch cut twice for our mats. And finally, our other 2.5 by 2.5 inch square. And here we go. We're just going to cut off so we can keep our longer piece of paper to set aside, and one more 2.5 inch cut here. This lined up. All right. Finally, we have our hot fudge cardstock, and with this we needed to cut 8 2 3/4 inch squares. So here's our 2 3/4, and I I did it again, so give me just a moment to fix my cut here. And 2 3/4. Okay. And now we just need to go 2 3/4 again across here. Now also the second one, we need to make 4 more of our 2 3/4 inch squares. So we're doing 4 more 2 3/4 inch squares from our hot fudge cardstock. So we will have 8 squares when we're done. And that is it for our 12-inch trimmer. Okay, let's get our first piece of designer paper, and I am going to use the one that has the more print on it for the one that's going to have the squares going across the bottom and the printed piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down first. Now that we know a little bit more of what we're doing, since we've done this once, hopefully it'll come together a little bit easier for you as well. So we're putting our 3 1/4 by 12-inch strip across the bottom of our page. There we go. We're taking 4 of our cardstock squares, and those are going to go across the bottom here. There we go. And again, on our third one over, we're going to place our smaller box that we cut, the 2 1/2 inch by 2 1/2 inch single from our second sheet. And I think I'm going to go with the dark green on this one. And I'm going to have the lines going horizontally, because then that's the way our mirrored triangle is going to be going as well. All right. Grab my parchment, put some tape on my mirrored triangle border that's not wanting to cooperate and get picked up here for me. Here we go. And that goes across the top of our designer paper down at the bottom. There we go. And finally we have our 2 photo mats that will come from also our green papers. So we just need 2 of them for this side here. And I think I'm actually going to do 1 of each color just to kind of break it up a little bit. I've got a lot of the dark going on, so I kind of am going to add a little bit of the light green as well, I think, on this one. Here we go. And now page 2. First, we are going to put together our little mirrored triangle boxes. So we have our cardstock pieces, and I'm going to flip over this so that way we can see our honeycomb design a little better, my paper. And you are really, I guess it does say to use the reverse on the project recipe, but really it's whatever you want to go with, whatever you feel best about. Because that's part of the creativity of scrapbooking, is to do what goes with your pictures and what you like. There we go. Okay. So first things first, I need to fix my one that I'm going to be piecing together here. So I'm just going to use a little bit of the repositionable tape on it and fit it so that way it looks like it's all one piece. And then my brown ones are the ones that are going on the outer edges. Well, there we go. And then my green is going to go in the middle. And if you feel like you want to use the Honeycomb border maker cartridge again with this, go for it. I just wanted to show you something a little bit different, that you don't have to follow the instructions, I guess, exactly to the letter. It's okay to be creative and to go with something a little bit different. And you'll still get a beautiful page from it. I could even see doing this with our barbed wire or our rope border maker cartridges. And just, they all create really beautiful designs. And now we have our green. Let's see. I think I will go with the light green on the inside. The dark green just looks really disappears to me, so I think the light green is going to pop a little more. Whoops. Get my squares out of the way here. Here we go. And then I don't think it really matters if you want to offset it or if you want to line up your actual bumps. I'll show you where I'll try. Well, they don't actually, sometimes it's going to wind up a little offset. This one actually wound up on both ends in a little bit. I guess if you really want to be fussy and have it so it's precise where your bumps are hitting from your mirrored triangles, that is also completely up to you. I kind of like how this one is going in while the other one's going out, but I don't mind it kind of lining up some of the bumps as well. This one is going to line up. So that just gives you a little bit of a different look on each one of them. Okay, so now I'm going to gather my second sheet of designer paper here. I'm going to adhere my mirrored triangles to the side, staggering the design the way we did with the honeycomb. And I'm going to get my photo mats here. And we obviously want it to, actually I'm going to use the dark green, pop a little bit here. Okay, let me see if I'm lined up on my board, just so I know if I'm getting my line straight here. Not quite. Pretty close though. So here we go. Whoops. And now I've got to re-straighten it because I knocked it. There we go. And now it's okay if you space them out a little more or a little bit less. It's perfectly fine. If you want to put them all four really close together, that's up to you. You can do that. There's this. Get my photo mats on here. It's almost hard to see where I'm putting the tape on that one. It's so light. Okay, so we now have our page 2 done. I'm going to bring back in our first page to show our 2-page spread again. And I am going to pull out some of my Spring Cottage mats and embellishments and stickers and see what might work on our, see if I can find another little corner piece to put up in here for my journal box. And I think I'm going to find another embellishment kind of like what we did on the other page we put together. Let's see. This one. Well, there's a wood tone. That's a lighter wood tone that would pull in from my other side of my page. I just don't know if I cut one of these, if it's going to be too large. Since I already have one cut, I don't want it necessarily to go on my picture, but I guess my picture would go over it. But still, I think I'm actually going to cut the smaller one in half like we did on the other side of the page. Although actually I have this one left over from when I cut. Now I don't think that the little pine tree looks too bad. Or again, I could put this other side. I need to trim off just a little bit. I must not have used my cutting guides when I cut this one in half the last time. Let's see here. Nope. There we go. Just taking that little bit of yellow off of there. So I think I'm actually going to put that on this little piece on here, and I'm going to check and see which embellishments I have. If I have another little tree, I might actually use the pine tree side. So here's our Spring Cottage embellishments. Ooh. looks like we do have a tree, but it's a little bit big for our space. We have some other florals. I have a lily pad. Let's see. It's about this thistle that shows up down here, and then if we leave the tree up here, it kind of reiterates some of the nature found on the page. Or here's a smaller one. I actually like the movement on this one. I'm gonna go with the first one I picked here. And let me also attach this with some foam squares. Although this one has a little bit of a indenture to it, that it's already has some extra dimension when they cut it, which is kind of fun. Well, I am gonna have to cut that one in half. So to cut a foam square in half, you just take your scissors that nothing stick to and just run right through the middle of it. Go ahead and put it back on the sheet with the paper attached to it, if you can. And the paper off this other side. I'm just gonna pop this on here, just because I didn't want my square to show through when I lay it on my dark green box here. You really don't want that little bit of white foam square peeping out from behind your embellishment. Here we go. So I've now attached my embellishment, and I placed down my tree using my tape runner. Here's our 2-page spread using our Spring Cottage Collection. But you can see, we can use the same project recipe with more than one collection and use different cartridges, embellishments, and make them our own. Here's our 2-page layout earlier using the Welcome Home collection. And here is our 2-page layout using the Spring Cottage Collection. Thank you so very much for watching. Please hit the subscribe button, and if you would like YouTube to let you know when I load another video, hit the bell as well.